So we got a lot to get to this morning. Thank you guys so much for joining us for day 2 of our boot camp. We're going to be working with buyer presentations today. The wonderful Miss Rebecca Chamberlain has agreed to be my buyer for today. So we're going to show you guys how you can set up everything from before the appointment, during the appointment, and after the appointment. And then be sure to join us next week. We'll be talking with 2 lenders because the next step in our buyer's process is to have the lender involved with the loan process and being able to help us make a reasonable and intelligent offer. And then that will be the following week. So be sure to join us every day, Tuesday and Wednesday, starting at 10:30. And if you guys have any questions while you're on the Zoom this morning, you can always feel free to unmute yourself or just throw it in the chat. We have that open so you guys can ask any questions or get clarification on anything. And then, of course, you can always call me, text me, or email me. You'll hear me say that a lot because I'm here for you guys, okay? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. Okay, can you guys see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, is it the Buyer Bootcamp series?
Yep.
Perfect. All right, so our Buyer Bootcamp series continues. Today's agenda is, of course, the buyer consultation. And this is our footprint. This is our path. And this is what I tell folks all the time to create is a timeline, a path for you to follow. Some people like to have this particular picture put up where they can see it and they can do what I'm doing here and just circle what area of the path that they're on. One of the lenders I work with very closely, Juan with Summit Funding, he actually has a pathway for the loan process as well. So it actually helps out that you have the buying pathway and then you have the lending pathway because those two will intertwine and intersect every once in a while. So we're in the buyer consultation step. This is our agenda for today. We're going to prepare for our appointment, which I actually did a little pre-preparation last night with Rebecca, my buyer. Sent her over a questionnaire for her to kind of fill out. And then that way it's going to prepare me, the buyer's agent, for our appointment. And that's what the next piece that we would talk about today is during the appointment. We'll also show you the forms that you will need to use with your buyer's presentation. We'll actually show you the buyer's presentation itself and then go over the pitfalls just like we did yesterday. And then, yes, I do have a little bit of homework for you guys. And again, these homework pieces are mainly for you guys to not only go back and watch these videos or go through the boot camp manual that I'll be putting out there to you guys, but also to help you grow your business. Okay. So preparing for the appointment, it's very important that, because remember yesterday we talked about asking for the appointment and getting it set. And we want to make sure that when we're setting that appointment, we're doing it at a convenient time for who? The buyer. Yes, we'd like to have it at a convenient time for us, but ultimately we want to have our customer or our client happy and satisfied. So we need to be at a convenient time for them. A location, that's why I put location, location, location. It's not just for the house, but it's also for your meetings. You want it someplace where it is very calm and quiet, like at a coffee shop. I know a lot of our new agents, like Aiden, who's on the call this morning, we met at a coffee shop. Our very first meeting was at a coffee shop, and it was very calm. It was very quiet to where we can actually have a personal one-on-one conversation, but it was also a little bit private. So nobody else was really like in our business. We didn't have a server coming over to us every 5 seconds going, "Are you okay? How can I help you?" Right? So you want to pick a very nice location that's good for you and your buyers, but also you want to confirm not only the day before the appointment, but also the day of the appointment. What I also like to do is after I confirm the appointment, let's say the appointment's at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. That morning, I'll just send a quick message and saying, "Hey, just want to make sure that 4 o'clock this afternoon at such and such place still works for you." and they say yes, and then we go about our day, and then at 4 o'clock I leave, or 3:30 I leave to go to the spot, I'll send them a quick message saying, just want to let you know I'm on my way. That way they can see how attentive you are to them. And that's the most important piece, is to make sure that they feel that importance. Okay. And so the part of the research that I did is I did a questionnaire that I sent over to my buyer, Rebecca. I also did an initial phone call, which we're going to pretend that I did. Mine was more of a text with Rebecca of, hey, would you like to be my buyer tomorrow? So you want to make those initial phone calls, those follow-up phone calls, and be prepared for your appointment. That's what the whole point of the research is. So part of the questionnaire is for my research, does she have any kids? Does she have any pets? Is she married? What do they do for a living? Where do they currently live? And where are they going to live? And we'll go over why that's important, that we need to know all of this information. Some materials that we're going to need is going to be our buyer's packet, which I'll show you a good example of one. What I do, especially in the area that they're going to be buying in or looking in, I want to bring in the market stats and show them, say, hey, we're in January. Market stats are a little bit slower right now. Sales are listings are a little bit low right now. So you may have your pick of the lot. So we may have to look at like 10 houses instead of 30. So kind of be prepared for what that market stat means to you and your buyer. I also want to bring the agreements. Now I put sample agreements in there as part of my materials because I'm doing sample agreements with you. I actually want to go ahead and do real agreements. Okay. That way I'm already prepared that they can say, let's sign on the dotted line right now. I don't have to wait and go back and prepare the documents in my computer and then send it back to them to email, because I'm not always going to have a buyer that is technologically inclined and can sit there on the computer right that second and sign the documents. I also want to bring a list of vendors, okay? Because the questions that I always get is not just about the buying process, but after we get the house under contract, what are the next steps after that? Who's in your tool belt to help us through this process, right? So I want to bring in some vendor names so they can go ahead and start doing their research of, okay, I have 3 inspectors that I recommend. They can already do their research on which inspector they want to use. Or I have 3 termite companies that they want to look at using, or any of those things. And the vendor list is also important on the listing side as well, because it's like, I want to show them which photographer I'm going to be using, that I'm using a reputable company to do the staging, and stuff like that. So it's really important to be able to show also who your professional partners are, because you have a team. Even though you're an individual agent, did you guys know that you're a team? You have a team that consists of a lender, of inspector, of a termite company, of contractors and photographers and staging company. That is your team. It may not be realtors, but it is still your team. So present yourself as being the team, and you're the team lead. Okay. It helps buyers to understand the process. Okay. So my questionnaire to my buyer, Rebecca, consists of a few things that I need to know. I need to get to know my buyer. Yes, I may know little bits and pieces about her, but I want to know a little bit more. What's the reasoning behind why she's moving? What's her time frame? Is she looking for more of a fix and flip because she's an investor, or is she looking more for something that's turnkey, regular, ready to go? Or is she looking for something that's luxury, like a $5 million property, which we always hope for, right? Is she a first-time home buyer? Is she a veteran? Is she doing a cash or loan? All these things are important for you to get to know your buyers. Learning what their wants and needs are. Your buyer might be elderly and wants to live in a 55 and older community. And here you are looking at communities that aren't 55 and older. Or you may have a buyer that wants to live out in the country and you're finding stuff in downtown Chattanooga. So getting to know what they're looking for and where they're looking for, but also what they're not looking for. That's important because if you start sending them things that they're not looking for, that will turn them off faster than you can imagine. So I hear that all the time with the new buyers I pick up. Well, I was working with so and so, and I told them what I wanted, but they just kept sending me all this other stuff. That's why I left. That's why I didn't want to use them anymore. You then again, you also want to know their dislikes, but also their family social, their lifestyle, like with Rebecca in her questionnaire, she let me know that she has a very active family, that she wants to be out someplace where they're close to things to do with the family. And so that tells me exactly what I need to be looking for her. Okay. So during the appointment, again, you want to meet someplace quiet. And the whole point is to build your relationship with your buyers. Okay. I know it seems like a tedious task sometimes to actually take time out of your day because it might be a 30-minute conversation. It might be a 2 hour. I mean, sometimes you get so involved in these meetings that you're there for 2 hours. And so you got to make sure you keep an eye on your clock. Okay. But you also, even though you're trying to find out more about your buyer, you want your buyer to find out more about you. Why? Because having that personal touch between the two of you is more valuable than you can imagine. Because if they know that, oh, you've been in this business for X amount of years, you've done X amount of sales, and you've done this many this year, and you do this price point, and you're in this area, that's all kind of robotic. But if they know that I'm an avid reader, or that I love to go to the gym, and I have a family, and I like to travel, that's one thing that a lot of my buyers, specifically for me, my buyers and sellers know about me. I love to travel. So we talk about traveling all the time. They love to call me and say, "Hey, where are you heading off to this weekend, jet setter?" Because I've been to, Europe, and I've been to Mexico, and I've been to all the, states and things like that. I have annual trips with my girls in September. So they all know about me, and it just gives them that personal touch, that warm and fuzzy, cuddly touch. And that's what they really look for, believe it or not. Okay. But I also set expectations. Okay. I let them know that there's a possibility we're going to get an accepted offer at 10 o'clock at night, and I need to be able to get you on the phone, which, believe it or not, guys, it actually happened last night. I kid you not. 10 o'clock at night last night, and I'm getting an accepted offer. I'm trying to call my buyer because I've already prepared him, saying, "Hey, I've got the expiration set for 10 o'clock. You need to keep your ears on." And sure enough, we got the accepted offer last night. And I tried to call him, and he sends me back a text going, "Hey, wait, I got to wait till halftime. I'm watching the Tennessee game." So again, communication, setting expectations, and going that extra mile to make sure that they know when you're available, because there's nothing like a buyer or a seller calling you, and they can't get a hold of you because you forgot to tell them that you're in a training today and you can't pick up the phone, but you can text them, right? So, and finding out how they like to communicate, that's important. Oh my gosh, you'd be amazed at how important that is. I had a buyer last year who got really upset with the lender because the lender wanted to text all the time, wanted to text, nothing but texting. But she's not a texter. She actually wants to have that conversation. She wants to hear his voice, because you can't read emotion in a text, right? And so she actually wanted to hear that emotion in his voice. Okay. And so she wanted to be phone calls, and she got so upset with him. But then I have times where I'm trying and call and call and call and call, and I can't get my buyer on the phone. And I'm like, "Oh, wait, they're texters. I need to text them, you know? So knowing how your people like to communicate is extremely important. You need to know their needs, their wants, their likes, their dislikes, their goals. Ask a lot of questions. Okay. Even if you have to ask the question more than once. Okay. That way you make sure it sits in your memory bank. Okay. Like I said yesterday, that one of my clients just mentioned in passing that they were going to China right before our closing. on a vacation. And so what did I get for them for their closing gift? I got them a bottle of wine with pandas on it. The farmers that bought the 11 acres up in Georgetown, I got the mom and dad some beautiful wine and glasses with their family name and initials on it. And their children who are younger and wanted to have chickens and goats, I got them a little play set that had it was a little farm play set. That tells them that I'm listening to them. Okay, gives them that warm and fuzzy feeling. You also need to talk about their financials. This is the toughest piece of the conversation that anybody ever likes to have, is having a conversation about the finances, because they can kind of get a little touchy sometimes. That's why whenever I do my communications, I have two text threads that I start. One text thread is going to be between me and my buyers. And I say buyers because you've got to make sure that if they're married or have a partner, that you include both in that text thread, because you don't want to be communicating with one and then that person doesn't communicate the information correctly over to the other. And then all of a sudden there's a miscommunication. Okay, so I do a text thread with both my buyers, or all four of them, depending on, like, I had one where we had a husband and wife and an uncle who was moving in. So we had a text thread with all three of them. Then I have a second text thread with me, my buyers, and the lender, because I don't like the he said, she says. Well, my lender said this and my agent said that, and da 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 da. And then everybody gets mad at each other, and it slows down the process, right? So I don't ask non-lending questions in this text thread. I ask lending text questions, so that way we all are on the same page. Okay, because there's nothing like not knowing where we are in the lending process to make anybody upset. So I always set that expectation too. I make sure I talk about their pre-approval. Are they pre-approved now? Do we need to get them with the lender? Because a lot of times they don't realize that lender is what, guys? The first step. Lending and getting your pre-approval really needs to be your buyer's first step, because you cannot, well, you shouldn't, I shouldn't say you cannot, you should not take your buyers out to look at properties without knowing exactly what they're pre-qualified for. Because you could be looking at $500,000 houses and they're only pre-qualified for $400,000 houses. Okay, so keep that in mind. You also need to make sure that your buyers know all the costs involved in this process. Because is the loan the only cost in this process? No. They're going to have closing costs. They're going to have appraisal. They're going to have inspection. They're going to have termite, hopefully, or radon inspections, all kinds of different inspections that happen with a purchase of a home. They're going to have utilities. People want to know what their monthly utilities might be. So getting to know what those monthly utilities are for that particular house is going to be important. And so the other one is taxes. They want to know what the property taxes are going to be, or what their insurance is going to be on those houses. Because what if it's in a flood zone? Yeah, they may have to be having special insurance called flood insurance. Okay, so having all of this information up front is really going to be helpful for your buyers. And then, of course, knowing the process. Use visual aids when we're doing this. So that's why I tell people, bring a computer, bring a pad and paper, bring all kinds of literature that they're going to use for this process. The explanation of what inspections, the different inspections are. Your lender will have a lot of valuable flyers that you can utilize. That, like I told you, that pathway that Juan has set up, I take that with me to every single buyer's appointment. I take that map of the lending process with me so they can see what the process is from start to finish in the loan part. Okay. This is the piece that a lot of people have a problem with, because way back before, we would talk about compensation right before the closing. We wouldn't talk about it beforehand. It was kind of taboo. Well, now, and even before, we were supposed to be having the conversation about compensation way before this. We need to have it day one. The minute we start talking to our buyers, we need to let them know ultimately they are responsible for paying us. Now, if I can negotiate the seller to pay that, that would be even better for my client, right? Now I need to now get permission from them, which is kind of like an unstated permission or unvocalized permission that I get to negotiate on their behalf the compensation. It's in our exclusive buyer's agreement that we get to negotiate every aspect of the deal on their behalf. That's the reason why we are the designated agent. We get to negotiate for them and with them. And then, of course, the process is answering all their questions. Now, this is what I can say about answering questions. This is the most important part. If you don't take anything else from this boot camp, but this is the important part when you're answering questions. They are going to ask questions that you do not always know the answer to. That's okay. Say, I completely understand, and let me make sure I got your question right. Repeat it back to them and say, I don't know the exact answer, but let me find that out for you. Go find out the answer. And then when you come back and say, okay, I talked with so and so from ABC company, and they said the answer is this. Okay. Never, ever make it sound like you are giving them the answer. Always refer back to who gave you the information. Because if you are giving the information as though you're the expert and you're not, you can get in trouble. Because if that information is incorrect, guess who they're going to come back and blame? You. So always refer back to who gave you that information. My biggest question I always get is, what's the age of the roof and what's the age of the systems? You can either look on the disclosure to see if it's listed there. And if it's not listed there, you can call the other agent and have them ask the seller. And then when you go to answer that question to your buyer, say, okay, well, I talked with so-and-so agent. They talked with their seller and the seller said, blah, blah. It's very important that you tell your buyer, whoever asked the question, where the answer came from. Okay, because there are things that we are not experts in. We are not an appraiser. We are not an inspector. We're not a lender. That's our whole disclaimer, right? Go reread your disclaimer to know what you are and what you are not. Okay, we're definitely not a lawyer, FYI. Okay, so what you need to bring to your appointment, you need to bring basically a bio, a resume of yourself. Okay, what it is about you that makes you different. Your contact information, your training, your education, your history, reviews that people have said about you. That's all, everything that you need to bring because they need to know more about you as the agent because they're putting their trust in you and they need to be able to trust you 110%. Some extra things you need to bring: computer, pen and paper, business cards. Don't just bring one business card, bring multiple because you want one for each buyer. Give them a couple of extras because they'll be like, oh yeah, Bridget, she's helping me. She's doing a wonderful job as my buyer's agent. Here's her card. You need to call her. Because if you're doing a great job for that buyer, do you think they're going to bring you more buyers? Oh, absolutely. I have one buyer right now that's brought me 4 clients last year alone. So it's very important that you get those business cards out into the world. Okay. Create a data timeline sheet, kind of like what we talked about, our little pathway of where everything is and when we expect everything to be done. Your printed material that you're going to want to bring, because I always put it in a folder in a notebook. I do it with my colors or the Zach Taylor color. So I have a yellow folder that has a sticker on the front that's got my logo and the Zach Taylor logo, and so it's all color branded the way I want it. Does it have to be gold and black? No, you can have it branded to your colors. Just make sure you have the Zach Taylor logo prominently displayed on everything. That's the advertisement guideline. And make sure your phone number and the office phone number is prominently displayed because that's the advertising guideline. And everything that you're about to give your buyers is considered advertisement. Even though it's more of informational material for that specific buyer, it's still considered advertisement. So you want to have your transaction forms like we talked about, the buyer's exclusive agreement, the transaction form fee if you're expecting your buyer or seller to pay that fee, okay? The wire fraud, the disclaimer, the importance of inspection and survey, that is extremely important, especially for first-time home buyers. You want to be able to tell them exactly why it's important to have a radon test or why it's important to have a septic inspection and all the different things. They need to know the importance of all this because it's part of home ownership. How did you guys in your first home know if it was on septic or sewer? Your house. How did you know? Somebody had to tell you. You didn't just go and start digging up the yard, did you? No. So that's why it's important to give them all this information ahead of time. Okay, so our buyer's presentation looks just like this. So on the left is page 1 right here. That's like our cover page. And now this is an example of a buyer's presentation. It's in the boot camp manual. I'll send you guys out the link. You'll be able to see all this. You'll be able to download all this. And you can create something like this. Why reinvent the wheel when you can just utilize what's already there for you, okay? On the right-hand side is page 2. So again, you see how our footprint, our pathway goes. What does it mean to buy a house? What does it look like? What's the process? Well, you contact me. I'm your first and second contact because we need to make sure that we have lender in place. That's item number 2. So pre-qualifying for a loan, you'll hear this a lot in different classes. You as the buyer's agent, you're pre-qualifying your buyer. That buyer's appointment, that presentation appointment, that is you pre-qualifying your buyer to work with you. You're not pre-qualifying for the loan, you're pre-qualifying them to work with you. Okay, so there's a difference when you hear that pre-qualifying your buyer versus pre-qualifying them or the lender pre-qualifying them. So that's what you're doing at the contact me. You're pre-qualifying them as a buyer, as a customer. Your lender, and number 2 is the finance part that they're going to be pre-qualifying the buyer in the loan process. So this is really important that you get a copy of that pre-approval letter because it needs to be sent out with the offer. Nobody is going to look at your offer without a pre-approval in hand. If you say, well, I'll get you the pre-approval tomorrow, guess what their agent's going to tell you? Well, we'll look at your offer tomorrow because they're going to be wasting their time if they can't prove that your buyer is pre-approved. Okay. Third step, is searching for the home, finding the property, negotiating a deal, making an offer, getting it under contract. And then that's the next step, making the offer, going under contract after negotiations, then doing the inspections, getting back the inspections and discussing whether or not you want to have repairs done by the seller. Finance period, that's where your lender comes back into play because now he's had a buyer initially, right? Now he's got a buyer and a home and figuring out if we can make this work because I don't know if you guys know this, but especially if you're working with manufactured homes, there are some lenders that will not loan on manufactured homes. And if you just happen to put an offer in and get it under contract for a manufactured home, and then that lender comes back and says, I'm sorry, Bridget, we don't do loans on manufactured homes. Now you got to go back to the drawing table. Wouldn't you like to know if that lender doesn't do loans on manufactured homes before you make the offer, before you start looking at manufactured homes? I would. Okay. Then you get to the clear to close, and then we have closing day. So this is the pathway that Zach created for his buyer's presentation. Yours could look a little bit different. As you saw, my pathway for today's class looked very similar to this. Okay. So again, on the left side is the very next page, and on the right side is the page after that. So I took my questionnaire that I sent over to Rebecca. This is the questionnaire here on the right of basically who is the primary contact, what's the best way to reach them, what's the best time of day, what's prompting them to move, what is their time frame, okay? Because if they're looking to move within the next 4 months, do you think I'm going to be just sending her one listing every 3 or 4 days? No, I need to be sending her listings every single day. Every single time I see something pop on the MLS, I need to send it to her if it meets her criteria. Does she need to sell a house before she buys? That's most important because guess what? Now your one appointment turned into two because now you get to be the buyer's agent and you get to list her house when she's ready to sell. Win, 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 win. I love those types of appointments when they need to sell a house because now I have another transaction I get to be involved in. So if I need to sell her house before she goes and buys this new house, I need to know what house it is. So now I need to do the research. So before the buyer appointment, I sent her this questionnaire, right? I asked the question, does she need to sell the house before she buys? So last night or the night before the appointment, I now know the address. I can do what? I can now do a listing presentation for that address to show her what the house is going to sell for, what we need to do to get it ready to sell that house. That's going to be in next month's boot camp, but that kind of gives you an idea of how this ball can roll so fast and so far and have multiple transactions just by one appointment. Then we need to know what type of loan Rebecca and her partner, in this particular case, is her husband, is qualified for. Okay. So is it a conventional loan? Is it a first-time home buyer loan? What if, I'm just saying, what if she didn't tell her lender that she already owns a home? Could she be a first-time home buyer if she owns a home currently? No, there's criteria to be a first-time home buyer. What's the price range that she's approved for? She's approved for $480,000. Woohoo! That's a great number. We like that number. We also need to make sure if she needs to sell her home before she buys, well, is that home going to get her $480,000 that she needs to buy this new home, or at least the majority getting up to the 480 that she needs to buy the new home? That's what we need to look at when we're looking at selling her other home. Then we need to know the terms of her loan. And the reason why we need to know the generic terms of it is because in FHA and VA, we need to be able to fill in this information on the addendums for Georgia contracts, right? So there's certain things that we need to fill in on certain contracts. We need to know this stuff. But also we need to know is, do we need to think about asking the seller for closing cost help? And if we do, we need to know this ahead of time. I can't come up on an offer and then Rebecca go, oh yeah, I need $20,000 help. And here we are going to actually lowball this person on an offer and ask him for an additional $20,000. That wouldn't look good for us. That seller would just laugh us off the face of the earth. Okay. So it's going to make us look more intelligent if we know all the puzzle pieces. Then we want to know what type of house she wants. Does she want something move-in ready? Does she want to do a fix and flip? Well, as we can see from the top of our questionnaire, she's having a baby. She wants to move in 4 months. Do you think she wants a fix and flip? No, she wants something ready to go that she can just move in, put her keys down on the table and go about her life. Okay. So on the left, you can see I'm already starting to take this questionnaire and put it in the wants and needs columns. Okay. And so I know from her questionnaire, and we'll get to some more of the questions in just a second, that Rebecca and her family want to be within 40 minutes of Fort O. She wants a 1 level because she's going to have a baby, and little toddlers going downstairs are not fun. Even going up and downstairs pregnant is not fun, right? She needs a 4-bedroom because we already know by the next questions in the other page that she's already got 2 children ready already, and she has a 3rd coming. And then, of course, she needs a bedroom for her and her husband. There's your 4 bedrooms right there. She also does not want to share a bathroom with her other children. I don't either. So she wants at least 2 baths, maybe more. Okay. She wants a detached garage because her husband and her own their own business. And so they need all that extra storage. Okay. So they also need at least 1,900 square feet because they have a very large, energetic family that they need all this space for. as well as owning their own company, because guess what they do in their home? They have their business office or an office set up in their home for their business. And Rebecca would love to have 4 acres of land. I would love to have 4 acres of land as long as I don't have to mow it. Now, what are her wants? Needs and wants are two different things, right? We want extra space. So if I can get more than 1,900 square feet for her, that would be great because that's a want for her. She wants a large kitchen, but she doesn't need it. She wants it. So if I can find her a gourmet kitchen, that would be the gem for her, right? She also wants a safe area for her children. She needs it too. Don't get me wrong. That's going to be one of the biggest pieces that your buyers are going to come to you for. Is this neighborhood safe? Would you live here? They're going to ask you all kinds of leading questions that you may cause you to violate the Fair Housing Act. So you need to be very careful. Have the your sources that you can give them on where they can find out this information. Contacting the local police department to get crime stats, talking to the local schools to find out what the schools are like. Because I don't live in Fort O. I can't give expert advice about the schools there. So I can't tell her, oh, this school's awful or this school's great or I don't know about that one. You know what I'm saying? Because my children don't go there. Now, if I lived in Fort O and my children go to those schools, then I can give expert advice because I have firsthand knowledge of that school. Does that make sense? Okay. So she would want multiple garages. Remember, she only needs at least one detached garage, but she would love to have multiple. I would love to have multiple cars too. That's just me. But she also does not want too many stairs. 1 or 2 stairs might be okay, but doing 25 steps to get to a 3-level house might not be good for her, right? But she also wants to be close to family activity. So any areas around this particular area that she's looking for, she wants to be able to get to parks and to, the lake or the river or whatever that's out there. So finding out exactly what kind of family activities that she is involved in is going to be key. Now, and Rebecca can attest to this, one of the very most important questions that I asked her last night is, what else do I need to know or that you feel I need to know in order to service you better in finding the house that you want? That's the most important part. So that's that last question down there is what else can I keep in mind when I'm doing my searches for you? And again, where do you want me to look at for buying for you is 40 minutes from Fort O. What do you like about living in the area of Fort O? Well, she's got family that lives there, right? Okay. How many bedrooms, how many baths, square footage? So that's where I got that wants and needs list from. She wants 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, 1 level, 1,900 square feet. Does she have any children? And does she have any pets? This is really important because now that I know that she is a dog that loves to play soccer, it makes more sense that she wants 4 acres of land. Am I going to go find her a 1/4 acre for a dog, an energetic dog that likes to play soccer? Of course, I would. Rebecca, seriously, send me a video of that dog playing soccer. I'm just saying, I want to see it. And so I also asked what kind of house that she likes. Okay. She likes a ranch because if I go and start finding her manufactured homes, but she wants a ranch, is she going to be happy with me? No, because trust me, I can find a 2,000 square foot manufactured home. They're out there. Okay. So just be aware of that. And so if I start finding her a 2,000 square foot manufactured home, she might not like me. She might go find another buyer's agent. I also ask what is the top 5 things that she wants in her future home. She wants land. She wants a spacious house. She wants garages, a gourmet kitchen, and location, location, location. Fort O is where she wants to be. And then this is how I found out about the family activities because it's like, what do I need to keep in mind when I'm doing the searches? They would love to find a home in a family-friendly neighborhood with good schools and a yard for my kids. I also value a sense of community and being close to parks, schools, and activities. That gives me a great idea of what Rebecca is looking for her family. Because if I'm looking for 4 acres and there just happens to be 4 acres near an industrial park, is that going to be a good fit for Rebecca and her family? No. So you need to keep all of these things in mind. Now, I know some of you might go, but Emily, I don't know all these areas. How am I going to find what Rebecca's looking for? I don't know if this is an industrial area. Google Map and Street View is your best friend. So if you find a house, and I tell my buyers this all the time. When you find a house on Zillow, go to Google Maps, look at the street view, because the pictures that the agent takes, they lie. Pictures lie. They tell you a beautiful story about this house, and then you get there and the floors are like roller coasters because the foundation is crap. Or they tell you this beautiful picture of the yard, but you don't see that there's a mobile home park on the right side of the house, or it's on the edge of a cliff. So they try to take these pictures to give you this beautiful story, but you need to see the whole picture. So Google Street View in Maps is your best friend. I tell all my clients to use it. Okay. The other thing I also tell them is on Zillow and Realtor.com, you will find open houses all the time that are listed. I give them a card and it tells that agent, I'm their agent. Please don't try to steal my buyer. Because are my buyers going to go with me to open houses, or am I going to go with all my buyers to open houses? I might have 10 buyers. Blessed me, I have 10 buyers. Woohoo, right? Am I going to go to 25 open houses today? I can't do that. You can't do that. Okay. So find a way where you can make up a business card on like Vistaprint that just politely says, thank you so much. And I've seen a little thing on Facebook about this, a card that somebody made that said, thank you so much for allowing my buyer to come to your open house today. Just know my buyer has already signed a buyer's rep agreement with me. And if they would like to make an offer, I will be the one reaching out to you, or something to that effect. That way they know that this buyer is currently under contract with me. And that's the one line agents will not cross, is that representation line. That's the one line we don't cross. We don't go and try to steal other clients' buyers. So if they have a current buyer's rep agreement in place, I don't go, oh, hey, Bridget, I know you're working with Zach over here at Zach Taylor Real Estate, but I can do better for you. Come work for me, or come work with me. You can't do that. It's unethical. You don't want to do that. So letting your buyers know when they go to these open houses by themselves, we don't want them to be solicited by the agents that are at the open house. Okay. So I also have in my buyer presentation some information about mortgages. So these are the flyers that I was talking about earlier that you can get from your lenders to find out and give more information about loans and the loan process. Here's another flyer that Zach put in here. The cost of buying a house. Well, you can either create one, or you can not reinvent the wheel and use something that's similar to this out of the Buyer Bootcamp workbook. They need to know that earnest money, home inspection, appraisal, closing costs, that's all a cost of buying a home. Then he put in here a flyer on home searching. What's the process? What does it look like? What should I expect when I go to start actually looking at these houses? Because trust me, my seasoned agents out there know this 100%. It is frustrating sometimes in the home search process. Either there's not a lot of homes out there that meet my buyer's criteria, or there are too many homes that meet my buyer's criteria. Or this is the best part, my buyer's criteria changed, or they forgot to tell me something. That happens all the time. So just like Ross and Friends says, you got to be ready to pivot. That is going to be the word of the day, pivot. Okay. Once we find the house that our buyers really want to buy, or even that they were consider buying, we want to talk about the offer. So if my buyer's considering making an offer on a house that we just looked at, we now need to sit down and we need to talk numbers. What is it going to look like in the offer process for my buyer? How much am I going to offer? How much earnest money can they afford to put down ahead of time? When and why would they lose their earnest money? You need to make sure they're very well aware of all the pitfalls in the home buying process, because I can guarantee you that if somebody misses one piece of the timeline, they could lose their earnest money. And they need to know that that's a possibility and how we can prevent that from happening. That's our job. Then we need to talk to them about inspections, what to expect, our timeline on that, appraisals, what to expect, and closing, what to expect there. Has anybody ever heard of the book, What to Expect When Expecting? Now, I know a lot of you have. A lot of you probably read it from cover to cover. I know I did when I had my 2 children. But there are not always a perfect manual to expect when you're expecting to buy a house, because the rules change all the time, right? We all know that. Our TAR forms and GAR forms change just every year. So we need to know how to fill all this stuff out. So I also have a frequently asked questions section, because there are questions that my buyers may not remember to ask. What should I do if I see a house online that I like, but you didn't send it to me? What is the difference between pre-approval and pre-qualified? Can you show me a house that's not your listing, or that is even not listed on the MLS at all? How much do I need to save for a down payment? Now, some of these questions are lender questions, but here's the great thing is that's what you can tell them is, oh, that's a great lender question. Let's put that in our text thread to Lender Joe. How much does the buyer blah, blah need to have to put down on this house, right? So that's, again, part of the communication process. How do we write an offer? So here's the other thing I tell my buyers. Now, you can tell your buyers how you expect to do business, but this is what I tell them for my buyers. You're going to remember questions at the most inopportune times. I don't care if that question comes to you in a dream at 3 o'clock in the morning. Go ahead and text it to me. I may not answer you till the next morning, but at least you got that question out of your brain and on some type of material, whether it's pen and paper or a text message, and it won't fly out of your brain. Because when you go, wait a minute, I was supposed to ask Emily something. What was I supposed to ask Emily that I thought about last night at 3 o'clock in the morning? But if you would have texted it to me at 3 o'clock in the morning, we could be talking about it now. Does that make sense? So you've got to set that expectation of how you want to do business. That's how I do my business, because I don't want any of my buyers or any of my sellers going with unanswered questions, if that makes sense. Okay. And I always tell them I may not answer the question right away, but I will answer it. Here's some more frequently asked questions. What happens if my offer on the house I love already? What if there's already an offer? How do we combat the multiple offer situation? What happens when my offer gets accepted? Woo, what's the next step? That's when the celebrations start happening and the corks start popping and the confetti starts flying. Not just yet. There's more work to be done. It's at the closing table that cork gets popped and that confetti gets thrown. What is escrow? A lot of people don't realize what that word means. What do I do with for inspections? How much is it going to cost? Who do I call? What am I going to be looking at as far as the inspection? Do I need to be there for the inspection? Absolutely, you need to be there. What if my loan doesn't get approved? We're get all the way through this process. We're a week from closing, and all of a sudden my loan doesn't get approved. What happens? We need to know the answer to these questions. When can I start moving? Oh, that's a good one. I get that question all the time. It's from buyers and sellers. When can I move? Can I move in early? Oh, that's the question I always get. Can I move in early? My seasoned agents out there, what's the answer to that question? not a good option as a buyer or a seller to move in early. It muddies the water, and we don't like that. Another thing that we like to add in our buyer's presentation is vocabulary that our buyers need to know. Because I can guarantee you that I go and I tell my buyers, oh, if you find a FSBO that you like and you want to see, don't contact them. Let me contact them. And they look at me like I got two heads. What's a FSBO? Well, it's a for sale by owner. Where do I find for sale by owners? I actually had one. I kid you not. Last year, I had somebody find a for sale by owner on a message board at the Seventh-day Adventist College up in Collegedale. It was on their little post-it note or index card on the community board. House for sale by owner, with a phone number. She calls me. She says, what do I do? Let me call them. Got her in to see the house. They loved it. They put an offer in. They got the house. Woohoo! Corks pop, confetti thrown, right? They need to know what a CMA is. Because am I going to just let my buyers buy a house for $480,000 and not know what it compares to in the market in that area? Heck no. Because we want to know going into that offer if it's going to meet appraisal price. If I don't feel like it's going to appraise, am I going to let them make the offer? No, because I don't want them paying for an inspection and paying for an appraisal, and then it doesn't come in, the appraisal comes in low, and then the seller goes, nope, I'm not dropping the price. You either pay my price or you go away. And it has happened. So I need to go in knowing all of this. Okay, so all of these vocabulary words are really important. Sometimes they don't know what title insurance is. Well, I already have insurance through State Farm. Why do I need title insurance? Let's explain to you why. Well, I saw this house on Zillow. I want to go see it tomorrow. Oh, but it was temporarily taken off market. I'm so sorry. I need to call the agent to find out why it was taken off the market and when they're going to put it back on the market. Because remember, we can't see houses that are not on the market when they're temporarily off market or they're in pre-showing mode. We can't physically go see them yet. What if it's pending versus under contract and contingent? What does those two words mean? What's the difference between contingent and pending? I've had to have that conversation several times with my buyers and tell them what the difference is. And then, of course, I have a cover sheet with all my contact information on there. Okay, so that's just a generic buyer's presentation that I go over with all of my clients, and I have it in a nice, beautiful folder with the forms in there that I'm about to show you in dotloop. Now, what are some pitfalls? I went over this yesterday, and some of them I've added some. So we want to stay organized. Throughout this entire process, you're going to see that on every single pitfall slide that I have. Staying organized is the one pitfall that some agents, or not staying organized rather, is the pitfall some of my agents do. They don't stay organized and then they get chaotic and crazy and then they lose the deal. Follow up constantly. Why is follow up in this particular case versus in the trying to find the buyers that we did yesterday? Well, when you make that offer, there's an expiration date on there. And here it is. At my expiration date was at 10 o'clock last night. Am I going to wait till 10:01 to go, hey, Mr. Agent, why didn't you accept my offer? No. 8 o'clock, I'm going, hey, just curious, did your buyer or did your seller look at my offer, my client's offer? Yeah, but they're looking at two other offers that are about to come in. About to come in. So at 9:30, I'm going, oh, hey, it's getting kind of close. Do you think we're going to have an answer in the next 30 minutes? And then 10 minutes later, 9:40, I get a message saying, I'm sending you over the accepted offer. Follow up, making sure that that agent knew and keeps me on top of his mind of, hey, she's following up with me now. Doing a deal with her is going to be great because she's going to be constantly communicating with me. If she's communicating with me this much before we even accept her offer, gosh, that's going to be a great agent to work with. Agents that get forms filled out 100% from start to finish before they put it in the offer is going to be a great agent to work with. because they are organized and they follow up constantly. Here's something that makes a lot of my agents nervous. Practice your scripts. Oh my gosh, I have to act it out. Oh my, I just acted it out with you. You've got to talk these things out. You don't want to go in there stuttering, well, yeah, and not being able to answer the question intelligently. Even if you just practice this, that's a great question, Buyer Joe. I don't know the answer right this moment, but let me find that out for you and let you know. That is the best script that you can remember, because there are going to be a lot of times that that's going to come into play, because they're going to ask questions that you may not know the answer to, like that. This is very important that I talked about yesterday. Keep your calendar up to date. We talked about keeping a calendar. If it's not on your calendar, it does not get done. Well, as soon as I get an offer under contract, I have it in my calendar of what to expect at the next point. I have a 10-day inspection period. So on this day, it says inspection period end for XYZ address. I know that this date, I need to have the appraisal back, because the appraiser already scheduled and says I will have the appraisal back at X date. I have it on my calendar. Expect the appraisal back, because if I do not get a call from my lender on that day that the appraisal is expected back, guess what Emily's doing? I'm on the phone, or I'm in the text going, hey, have we heard back from the appraisal? So remember, make a calendar, keep it up to date. Again, this was on yesterday's slide deck. Don't give up. My seasoned agents out there, how many offers? What is the most offers that you've put in for one buyer before they bought a house, before they got it under contract? What is the most offers you put in for one buyer before they actually got all the way through the closing process? You want to know my number? 18. One buyer. I kid you not. She found something wrong with every single property until she found the one. And you just got to be patient. Don't give up. Don't be that person that goes, oh, this is the worst buyer I've ever had. I want to get rid of them. And then they go off and they buy a house with somebody else. Find a way to work it out. Okay. Sit down and have that conversation with them to find out, what is it that I'm doing wrong that we've put in 18 offers and we're not finding the right one. Come to find out, she wasn't answering my questions completely of what she wants, what she doesn't want. And I kept asking her over and over and over and over again, but she just could not answer that question. She's like, I'll just know when I know. I'll just know when I see it. I get that all the time too. But here again, stay safe. I can't stress this enough to you guys. I've seen too many of my fellow agent friends get hurt when doing deals, between meeting buyers that they've never met before at a house. That's why the Zillow leads and the Realtor.com leads, they're great. But are you really going to drop everything and just go meet them one day at a property out in Georgetown that is like 20 miles away from the next neighbor? I'm giving you an extreme question there, but there's agents that do that. And you want to make sure you stay safe. If you have not already taken a safety class or a self-defense class, I strongly urge you to do so, because I need and want all of you guys to stay safe. I can't stress that enough. Okay, so after we go through the homework, I'm going to get into dotloop to show you the actual forms, and let's look at what it means to fill out for a buyer's rep. Okay. Your homework again this week or today is going to be, I want you to add another 5 to 10 people into your CRM. Again, this is just a guideline. You don't have to do exactly 5 or exactly 10. It's whatever it works for you, whatever it looks like for you. Just pick a number, but don't be skimpy. Don't go, okay, Emily, I'll just do 1. Just let me do 1 today. No, come on, push yourself. Let's get 10 out there into your CRM. Go and ask for at least 5 referrals from vendors, from lenders, from past clients, from friends, from family. Okay. From Facebook, look at Facebook and see who's looking for an agent. Stick your name in the hat and throw your name in the hat. Okay. Have other people throw your name in the pot, right? Create at least 3 social media posts. I can't stress that enough. Again, 600 words a week is going to get you a deal. What that deal looks like, I don't know. It depends on what kind of message you're putting out there, but you will get at least one deal. Okay. Now, this is new. I would like to see everybody make at least one buyer appointment this week. I know the week's already over, but we're not going to do Monday to Friday. We're going to do today's Wednesday. Let's give you to next Wednesday to get at least one buyer appointment in there. Okay. Now, if you are new in the business, pick a friend. Call up your friend and say, "Hey, can I use you as an example? Will you pretend to be my buyer? I need you guys to get out there and start talking to people." This is all the part of getting you guys comfortable and getting you guys motivated and getting you guys out there for the buying season. Because yes, you're going to get listings, but you also need buyers. Okay. I would like to see everybody create your buyer presentation if you have not already. Everybody sits there and tells me all the time, "Oh, I plan on doing it. I plan on doing it." Go ahead and get it together. Let's see what it looks like. Get some opinions on it. Ask your fellow agents, say, "Hey, would you take a look at this buyer presentation for me and see what you think?" Maybe there's some verbiage in there that would sound better. Okay, I still do it. I'll send all the emails I send out to you guys for these classes. I run them by a friend and say, "Hey, look at this email. Does this look good to you? Does the verbiage look good to you? What do you think?" I send them all to some friends and go, "What do you think about this email?" And then I send it out to you guys because I don't want to look crazy or weird or, for lack of a better word, stupid, right? But then I also want you to practice your buyer appointment with a fellow agent, because just like any other career, somebody that is not in the business is not going to be able to look for the pitfalls or the errors that you're making in your buyer presentation. Only another realtor will be able to point out and see where your mistakes are. So reach out to your friends on Facebook that are realtors. We have a whole Zach Taylor agent group that you can reach out and say, "Hey, I'm going through this boot camp. I want to create my buyer presentation, but I need somebody to practice with me." You'll probably be the first one to ask that on our Facebook group. But you know what? That tells me that you're serious about your business, that you want to be very serious about your business and look intelligent to where you're going to gain more clients. Okay. So that's very, very important, is to practice, practice, practice. Okay. So now let's look at, I'm going to change my screen and I'm going to have to ask you guys again if you can see it. Okay. Can you guys see my dot loop screen? Can somebody just unmute or send me
I
an
just see your regular screen, like
app?
with the purple.
Oh, let's see. Uh, let's try this. Can you see it now?
Yes,
Does it say Emily Berryman, Chattanooga office?
it does.
Perfect. Thank you, Rebecca. Okay, so if you have not already, especially for my newer agents, if you have not logged into your dot loop or you have no idea how to get into your dot loop, please reach out. Call me, text me, email me. I'll say that over and over again. Reach out to me. I can help you. Okay. Some of the agents have already reached out just to see if they're filling out a form right. I get phone calls every day. That's okay. That's what I'm here for. You're not bothering me. Okay. So you see here, I already have some loops in here. We're not going to look at any of these because these are stuff I've already done. I'm going to create a new loop by hitting this add loop button. Okay. Now, since I'm already using Rebecca as my buyer and I don't know what address that she's going to buy yet, I'm just going to put her name in here. And if I misspell your name, Rebecca, I'm so sorry. Is that how you spell your last name?
Perfect.
Hey. Now, notice a whole bunch of addresses popped up in that little drop-down button. I don't have to use any of those. I can just leave it as Rebecca, and I'm going to hit continue. Now, this is really important. You need to pick a template because Mackenzie and Taylor and Zach and Cameron have created these templates to make your job easier. Does anybody remember that Staples commercial where it had that easy button and you hit it and it says, that was easy? I'm going to get one of those for my office desk. And every time something happens, I'm going to hit that button and say, that was easy, because guess what? It's that easy. So we're going to go ahead and pick a Tennessee buying residential, because remember, we're not listing yet, we're buying. Okay. So I'm going to do Tennessee buying residential. The reason why I tell you to do these templates is because when I hit continue and I hit done, it's going to give me all of my forms that I need to have, and I don't have to guess at it. Now, again, these are little pieces here that I can change. It's not a purchase, just it could be a listing or a lease or something if I picked the wrong one. But for this case, it's a purchase. What stage am I in? This helps Emily, me, keep it in my brain of where I am in my staging. I'm in a pre-offer stage. We haven't made an offer yet, have we? No. What price am I looking for? I just go ahead and put that 480,000 that Rebecca and her husband are looking for, so that I know I don't really want to go over that. Okay. I don't want to put a closing date in yet because I don't have a closing date. And from here, I can either create another loop or I can view this loop. So I'm going to go ahead and view this loop. And this is the best part, is it pulls in exactly the forms I need. No guesswork, takes the guesswork out. It also tells me up here in the buyer agent or a buyer agreement folder when I need to submit this folder for review. Guys, if you submit these folders for review and follow this timeline, you will have your file approved at least a week before closing, unless you have a closing that happens in 10 days. If you have a regular closing that happens in a regular timeline, you should have your loop approved by compliance within a week of closing. Okay. Now, before I open up any of these forms, I'm going to go up here and I'm going to hit view details, because I need to put in some information here first, because this is going to help me in the long run. Okay. So I'm going to hit add person and I'm going to put Rebecca in here first. Okay. And I need to pick a role. Who is Rebecca to me? She is my buyer. And in here, I can put down any of her information that she gave me. Because remember, in our questionnaire, which I'm going to go find my questionnaire from Miss Rebecca right now. Where did I put it? There it is. She has a house to sell at 3334 Van Buren Street in Chattanooga. So I'm going to go back over here and I'm going to, now I can put in her phone number here and I can put in her email address, but I'm not going to do that because I might accidentally send it to somebody. So we're just going to pretend like I put an email address in there. So the street name is Van Buren Street. Now I do, me personally, this is my personal preference. You can do whatever you want here. I do everything in caps, all caps, because it jumps out on the screen at me to where my buyers can see it like that. That's a bad snap. Like that. That's a better snap. Okay, so the street number is 3334. City, Chattanooga. And so when I show you all this, you're going to see what I mean by how your buyer will be able to see this a lot better. I'm going to scroll down to Tennessee, and the zip code was 37415. And again, I can put in a cell phone number here if I need to. Now I'm going to add this person. This is really, really, really important. Do you see this button here? It says add to my team. Do not click add to team to any buyer or seller. And the reason why I have that for myself as a rule is because I do not want my buyer or seller seeing every single time I do something in this folder. It will send them a notification every time I do something. I don't want to do that. But for those that are on teams, you need to add your team members on these loops that's where you would click add to team. So if you're on the Lawrence team or the Grace Frank team or the Erickson team, that's where you would add teams. What if you're a co-lister? What if Bridget and I were co-listing a listing? I would add her to my team at that point too. But unless they're that specific situations, I don't add them to my team because you can't undo it. Okay. Do not send them an intro email. It doesn't, unless you're adding them to your team, it doesn't, they won't understand it. It will just confuse the situation. So we're going to go ahead and add Rebecca. Notice it put her right here. Now I'm going to add her husband. I got to go back over here to the questionnaire, and I notice his name is Josh. But Rebecca, you'll have to answer this question. Is Josh his legal name or is it Joshua?
Joshua.
Aha. Because if Emily puts Josh on the contract, guess what I'm going to have to do before closing? I'm going to have to do an amendment to change his name. So we're going to put Joshua. And we're going to add him as a buyer. Okay. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to do 3334 Van Buren Street, Chattanooga, Tennessee, 37415. And we're going to add. Now, when I'm ready to make an offer, I will go back into view details and I will add the listing agent and I will add the seller. Now, I don't want to add any information for the seller as far as email or address or anything because I only need his name in there, okay? Or their name, excuse me. With the agent, though, I want to go in and put all the information for that agent in that add person file. I will discuss that more when we get to the listing bootcamp next week or next month, excuse me. Just in case, I always hit save every once in a while because there's nothing like going in, doing something, you click one button and it's all gone. And now you got to start all over again. So periodically hit save. Very, very important. Okay. When you scroll down, the property address that you're going to be putting in here is the one you're making an offer on. Do we have a property for Rebecca and Joshua yet? Or Josh? No. So we're going to leave that blank. Financials, we already know that we're looking at $480,000. Okay, that's what we're looking for. When Rebecca and I discussed compensation, Rebecca, I'm going to ask you to unmute again. Just throw a number out at me. What number did you and I agree on that you would pay me for compensation?
2.5.
2.5. Good number. I like that number. So on the buy side, I'm going to put 2.5. Now, I don't know what the sell side commission is going to be yet, do I? Nope. I also don't know what the earnest money is going to be yet, because what if Rebecca can only afford $500 in earnest money? It's not my recommendation to put only $500 down. We make that discussion, or we have that discussion, and I asked Josh and Rebecca, how much can you afford to put down as earnest money? Do I want to have this conversation when we're ready to put an offer in, or do I have this conversation at the buyer's presentation? I have all these questions answered at the buyer presentation because I need to know going in, whether it's tomorrow, the next day, next week, next month, of what Rebecca and Josh can afford for all of these pieces. I don't want to sit here and have to gather this information late in the game. Okay. We don't know the agreement or closing date part yet, or the offer date, or any of this information here. Now, this is important because what if Bridget referred Rebecca to me? Is there a referral fee in there that me and Rebecca discussed? Yeah, there might be, right? So we need to put it in here. We don't really need to go any further than this on a buyer's rep because we don't know any of the listing information just yet. We don't know any of the geographic details yet. We don't know any of the property information yet because we don't have what? We don't have a property yet that we found for her. So we're going to hit save. Remember, we're hitting save periodically so we don't lose all of our information. And then we're going to go back to our loop. This will take us back to our loop here. Now, here's the coolest piece about this. This is what I really love, is that you see all of these different documents inside of this folder. Now, I already know that I do not need this working with a real estate professional because I want to do an exclusive buyer's agreement with Rebecca and Josh. So if I don't need it, why do I want to keep it in here and go, oh, wait, did I get her to sign that 2 weeks from now when my brain is crazy from looking at 40 different houses with Rebecca and Josh? Okay. So this little 3 little dots over here, I'm going to do the little button here and I'll scroll down and you can actually archive this. See how it disappeared? It's still there. So when I go over here and I hit show archive, it's still there. It's just hidden. So I don't need it anymore. Now, if it says required over here, you cannot archive these because they're required for compliance. Okay. Now, the affiliated business disclosure, I'm going to show it to you just in case you use this. But if I already know that I'm not using priority title, I'm not going to use this. Okay. But if I am going to use priority title, I'm going to use it. So I'm going to show it to you anyway. So if I check mark here, notice it puts a check mark in all these boxes, and I can either make a copy, which you only do that if you need it for another folder. Like if you want to transfer these to another Rebecca Chamberlain folder because we turned this into a property and that she's buying and that she ends up not buying this property. We need to start a new loop. I don't want to have to recreate these documents again. I'm just going to use the ones that she already signed because these are buyer specific, not property specific. Does that make sense? I can print them. I can download them. Nobody has fax anymore. Some people might have a digital fax still, but I don't, so I don't use that. And then I could share them, but I don't have anybody to share it with just yet because I haven't filled them in yet. So let's go ahead and open, and it will open every single one of the documents I have a check mark next to. Okay. This is the best piece to this. Autofill. If you do that view detail and fill in all those details as much as possible, you will automatically have this autofill pop up, and it's less work for you because it will put Rebecca and Josh's name on every single document that I just opened. How awesome is that? It'll put a signature in every single document of where Rebecca and Joshua need to sign because I have them listed as the buyer. How awesome is that? I also have me listed in here. So we're going to put in here the 2.5% that the commission rate that Rebecca and Josh and I discussed. It has in here their home address because remember, they have a house to sell. I'm going to need that. And then it also will have in here, I forgot to change me, buyer agent, Emily. That's me. And then I'm going to hit autofill. Now, this is just going to say, hello, you're changing some fields. Yes, I'm changing some fields because I added some important information in here. I need to change this. It's okay. So we're going to change that. So the very first form that we opened up is our transaction fee. So as all of our Zach Taylor agents know, whenever you do a transaction, there is a transaction fee that we charge. Okay. And so we need to find out from Rebecca and Josh if they feel comfortable paying that transaction fee, or do I need to pay it myself? Now, Rebecca, unmute yourself again. What do you think? Can you pay the full $474 transaction fee, or would you rather pay $200?
I don't want to pay anything.
You don't want to pay anything, and that's perfectly fine because guess what? She's buying a $480,000 house from me at 2.5%. So do you think I can afford my $474 transaction fee on my own? I think so. But I still need to make sure she knows that there's a transaction fee associated with this, but I'm asking her to pay $0. Okay, so I still need her to know that. So we're going to put Rebecca's name here. Let's see if I could spell right. And then I need to put Josh's name here. Remember, it's Joshua. Now, notice mine are in blue because against that black writing, can Rebecca see that a lot better now? Yeah, she can. This is important. I need to put me here because it could be Bridget's client and I'm going, oops, maybe Bridget gets that $474. Nope, Emily. Emily needs to pay that. Here is where I'm going to put 0 because I'm asking Rebecca and Josh to pay 0 transaction fee on my behalf. And I'm okay with that. Now, the signatures are not automatically filled in on this form. So when I hover over the signature area, see this pops up where it's either assign or sign now. I want to assign this field and see how as soon as I hit that assign button, look what pops up. All my options. So I'm going to put Rebecca as first, and then I'm going to put Joshua as second. Now, this is really important. This has actually popped up with prior clients of mine. Who do I put first, Rebecca or Joshua? Well, that's the whole conversation that we have in our buyer's rep. Because what if Rebecca wears the pants in the family? Am I going to put Joshua first? Oh, heck no. Rebecca's going to be like, no, you put me first. I'm just kidding. I know you guys are equal partners. And so then they'll be like, I don't care. So then it's just whoever comes in first comes in first. It doesn't matter, right? So, but sometimes there are people who are very specific about whose name comes first. I promise you, especially some of our older couples. Now, the agent here, you can either assign the field or you can sign it. I don't like to sign it just yet because as soon as I hit the save button and it saves my signature, but then I go, oh man, Rebecca said she'll pay $200 of my transaction fee. Now it's going to go delete my signature. Why not wait until after Rebecca and Josh sign it for me to sign it? That way I know it's set in stone. So I can just assign that to myself for later. Again, hit the save button. I can guarantee you you're going to love me for telling you this because I've done it. Ask my husband. I'll be sitting on the couch doing an offer at 10 o'clock at night, and all of a sudden he'll just hear me go, darn it. Except I use a little bit more graphic terms. I'm just saying. And he goes, you did it again, didn't you? And I'm like, yeah, I hit the shift back arrow and it deleted the entire field. And I just wrote a paragraph. And it's like, oh my God, what did I just do? And guys, I don't do it just once. I do it again and again, like 3 more times because it's 10 o'clock at night and I'm going, I can't, what am I doing? Yeah, it happens all the time. So save, 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 save. I can't tell you anymore. Okay, this is that affiliation agreement because especially for my newer agents that don't know this or agents that have not used priority title, since the owners of Zach Taylor Real Estate have an owner interest in priority title, we have to disclose that ownership because Zach is getting a piece of the priority title pie. If a vendor decides that they want to pay us to advertise or pay us rent to have an office here in our office, we have to disclose that to all of our buyers and sellers. So we might have another disclosure or they may be added to this disclosure. And if you worked at Keller Williams specifically, only because I know firsthand, I used to work with Keller Williams, we had a list 25, 30 people, 60 people long of all these affiliated businesses that paid Keller Williams money to advertise. But we have to make sure they know just because they're signing, letting them know that they or do business with us, you do not have to use them. You can use whoever you want. We just have to tell you that we get a piece of this pie and this pie. Okay. So we're going to do to Rebecca Chamberlain. And this is important. People go ask me all the time, why can't I just say Rebecca and Joshua Chamberlain? Because what if it's Rebecca Ann Chamberlain as her legal name, and it's not just Rebecca Chamberlain? We need to be able to differentiate what their entire name is. trust me, if you look at tax records and you try to figure out what the name is, right, Rebecca? It kind of will drive you insane trying to figure out what names really are on tax records. Okay, so we don't have a property yet, so we can leave this blank, or we can put to be determined, or we can wait to have this particular form signed once we get a property in place, because we don't know if we're going to use priority title when the offer comes, right? We don't know yet. So we also want to put today's date if I'm going to get it signed today. Okay. If I'm going to get it signed next week, next month, that's the date I need to put on there. This gives her all the information about priority title. And I need to assign her as one of the signatures. And I need to have Joshua sign as one of the signatures. What am I going to do next? I'm going to hit the save button because I don't want it to disappear. Then I'm going to scroll to the next form. See how it's wonderful? It just kind of goes in line. Okay. Now, some of these things are already filled in for you before you even put your information in here. Like Zach Taylor Chattanooga, if you have your profile set up, this will automatically fill in to all your forms, whether you pre-fill the view details or not. But again, I want to know that Rebecca and Josh can see it easily. So if I click on the field, hover over this text color, I can change it to blue. Can't really see it very well, so I can bold it. Wow, you can see it now, can't you? There's no real easy way. Until I find an easy way to make this an automatic thing, I'll let you know if I figure out if I can get this to change on the other forms. Okay, some forms it does it, some forms it doesn't. Your address of whatever brokerage you work for, whether it's Murfreesboro or here, if your profile on Dotloop is filled out correctly, this will automatically fill in for you. So again, I want her to be able to see it easily. There you go. Remember the view details that we filled in with Rebecca and Joshua's information? It automatically filled in for me. The terms, some of the terms don't fill in automatically because we don't know in the view details what day Rebecca and Josh and I are going to sign this agreement. Here's the important part to remember. If I am not letting them sign this electronically today, I'm going to meet with Rebecca and Josh tomorrow for coffee. But they're not going to be ready to sign tomorrow. They may want to sign the next day. You can leave this blank, and then that way when you print it, the date won't be there, and you can hand fill in the date at your buyer's presentation appointment. Same thing going for the expiration date. Guys, I cannot stress this enough. A contract is not a legal contract without an expiration date. I don't care if the expiration date's tomorrow, next week, 6 months, or a year from now. It has to be there or it's not a legal document. You have to have a start date and an end date for it to be a legal document. So I already know that I always use December 31st for all of my expiration dates that I get before June. If it's after June, I go a year from then. Okay. So again, I change the color so they can see it. I'm going to change some more colors. Now, this is just a personal preference. This is not a requirement. You do what works for you. Okay. The only two colors you get to pick from, though, is black and blue. Okay. Now, what type of property are my clients looking for? This is important because I need to be able to specify on this contract what my clients are looking for. General description, size, and location. Now, I could get very specific on here and say ranch, 4-bedroom, 3-bath, da-da-da-da-da. But remember that person that I showed or did 18 offers and showed 40 houses to? And her criteria kept changing? Do I want to keep changing this form? No. So I personally put any and all in this field because I want to be able to show them any property in any general description, any size, and location. Very important. Price range. Now, I could put in here that Rebecca and I discussed that she does not want to look at anything under 200,000 and no more than 500,000. What if in 3 months Joshua gets a raise? And I mean a significant raise. Like they're going to be millionaires. And I only put $480,000 there or $500,000 there. But then Rebecca comes up and says, Emily, I saw this $800,000 house I fell in love with. But I can only show her up to 500,000. So again, I personally put any and all because
I
I
mean,
was able to show
what
her.
if you did show me something above that price? I mean, what is it really that strict?
Not really, but I might want to consider amending this because uh everybody's crazy. Buyers, sellers, agents, lawyers, everybody. I'm not going to discriminate.
Right.
I'm crazy. Everybody's crazy. And
I just feel like what could go, I mean, what could,
if you were a crazy pregnant lady, you could take me to court and say, I bought an $800,000 house and I only agreed to pay her if she sells me a $500,000 house. So I'm not paying her.
but you, I chose it.
I know you did. Again, I
Okay.
go back to the disclaimer of everybody's crazy.
Okay.
You live in a country that is so happy and that people don't want to pay people. They want everything for free
That just sounds crazy. Yeah. Okay.
because you're a
I
good
mean, I've not really been strict with it
person.
because I've been like, you know,
I've told you this 100 times because, guys, in case you don't know, Rebecca and I, we have conversations all the time. They're wonderful conversations, by the way. Absolutely wonderful. You're a wonderful person. I've told you that. You're not going to be that person that doesn't pay for what was,
I choose.
right, what you chose. So, but
Okay.
I just tell you that there are some people that won't. They will look at this contract, go to their attorney and say, hey, I bought an $800,000 house and I only approved to pay her if she sold me a $500,000 house. Now, sources. How many sources are there out there of where to find the properties? A lot. If you look at how many websites that your MLS listing gets sent out to, I want to say that the last count, it was like 180 or more websites that whenever you put a listing into GCAR, it gets filtered down to like 180 different websites. It's called List Hub, Zillow, Realtor, Remax, Redfin, blah, 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 blah. Even Zach Taylor, it gets filtered down to Zach Taylor's website. Y'all know that. So if they signed on to Zach Taylor website to be able to look at properties and I don't put Zach Taylor website on here and they're going, I found it on Zach Taylor website. I'm not paying you. So what am I putting here? Any and all sources. Because I don't want to leave money on the table. Other terms and conditions. What if Rebecca came in and said that she all of a sudden wants a pool? Was a pool as one of her criteria? No. So we're going to say any and all conditions. Because even though she wants a turnkey, ready to go house, and then she decides to buy a fixer upper, did that condition change? If I were to put fixer or turnkey on that, it would change. Now, this is really important. Very, 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 very important. What specifically is exempted from this agreement? What if I have investors all the time and they want to use multiple agents? they may have already put an offer in on 123 Main Street. And if I put none in this exempted box, that means if he makes an offer and gets it accepted on 123 Main Street, guess who gets a piece of that pie? There's a possibility. Again, it goes on your ethics. But I'm going to put none here for me specifically because Rebecca and Josh have not looked at any houses. They've not made any offers on any houses. We are not going to exempt any houses for sale out there because some people, just FYI, they may say, I don't want you to show me houses that are for sale by owner. Because what if Rebecca and Josh want to go buy a for sale by owner themselves? Are they going to pay me when they go buy a for sale by owner and negotiate it themselves? They don't want to. Okay. So keep that in mind when you're going through all these different things. And you can leave these blank if you're going to fill them in when you do your buyer's rep appointment. Okay. I'm just showing you an easy way to fill it in now. Do you remember that 2.5 commission rate that was in that view detail? Look where it showed up. I don't have to do it. I don't have to put it. It's already there, right there. Okay. Oh, sorry. That's not supposed to be there. That's the carryover clause. My bad. Carryover clause is if this agreement expires or the buyers cancel and fire me, if they do not hire another agent within the 30 days and they buy a property themselves, guess who they still owe money to? Me. So carryover clause. But if they do not sign a buyer's rep agreement with another agent, or if they do, then they don't owe me this money. They have to sign with another agent. Okay. As you can see here, this carryover clause shall not apply if the buyer is subject to a buyer's representation agreement with another licensed real estate broker or agent. Okay, here's where my 2.5 comes in. Now, what if Rebecca says, Emily, I don't want to pay you 2.5%. I want to pay you $5,000. I would put $5,000 instead. But this is what some agents do. They'll either put a zero there or a dash or an NA. What's the word between the dollar amount and the percentage? Or. So if Rebecca had a choice between paying NA or 2.5% commission to me, which is she going to choose? She's going to choose no, zero, right? So you just leave it blank. It won't apply if it's left blank. So you want to put the 2.5. Line 52, this is important because remember, things don't always go as planned. What if I sell Rebecca and Josh's house next week? They're essentially homeless until they buy another house, right? So what if they decide, okay, for the next 6 months, we're going to lease an apartment. Guess how much Emily gets? Nothing, unless I put something in here. I typically put half month rent. Let me make that smaller so it doesn't cover up my other words. Because, oopsie, I finished spelling the word. Now, and I don't want to put an exact dollar amount in there. I just put half month rent. I mean, that's exact enough because I know that if Rebecca and Josh rent a place for $800, they only owe me $400. But if I put $400 in there and they rent a $2,000 property, guess how much money I just left on the table? So I would put half month rent or 1 month rent, depending on what you negotiate. I also let Rebecca and Josh know this. This is the time when I have this conversation because it's a possibility. It may happen that situations change and they only need to rent for the next 6 months, year, 18 months, whatever the case may be. It's always a possibility. So as we scroll down, you can go back and I strongly suggest if you're a new agent, you go back and you read and reread and reread these. I've been in the business for many years. I still go back and have to reread this when situations pop up. And I go, wait a minute, I got to go back and find out what is exactly the duties I owe to the client again, because she's crazy and I don't know if I want. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Really, I am. But I still do. I go back and reread contracts all the time. Okay, line number 156 is really important because it's designating who as the agent. Me. Because remember at the top of the screen, who are they hiring? No, they are hiring Zach Taylor Real Estate. They're not hiring Emily. They're hiring Zach Taylor Real Estate. Zach Taylor and the buyer are designating me to be their agent. So ultimately, who is the buyer and the seller paying? Not me. Ultimately, they're paying Zach Taylor Real Estate. And then Zach Taylor Real Estate is paying me. Okay. So that's why you guys need to know why all these fields are so important, is because the agreement, if we go back to the top of the agreement, this agreement is between Zach Taylor and Rebecca Chamberlain and Josh Chamberlain. My name's not up there. My name is way down here on line 156 because I am the person they designated to work on behalf of Zach Taylor Real Estate. Okay, so that's important. Confidentiality 174. I take this very seriously when I do my business. I keep all of my stuff confidential. If my buyers do not want the sellers to know she's pregnant and she's ready to burst and da 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 da, they're going to be like, why is she moving so fast? Why does she want to know if we can close in 10 days? Well, she's about to give birth. She doesn't want them to know that because now it's going to make them nervous that she's even going to show up to closing. There's certain things you need to keep confidential. And I'm not going to jinx Rebecca by saying any of the other possibilities that may happen, because, you know, if you put it out in the universe, it might happen. Lock it up. But there's other things that are confidential, like if they're, you know, having financial issues, if they're having personal issues, if they have family issues. It happens. Why is it that Rebecca's buying, but she's not putting Josh on it? I have to keep all of that confidential. Information which buyer authorizes broker and broker's affiliate licensees to disclose, which might otherwise be confidential. Here is where you could specify everything that Rebecca is allowing me to say. That could be a very long list, or it could be a very short list. So I just leave it blank. If Rebecca wants to fill it in when we do the buyer in representation agreement discussion, we can fill it in there. Okay, as we scroll down, we have different exhibits and addenda we can add on here. Some buyer's addendum could be, if we're using that priority title, that's going to be an addendum to add on here, that business disclosure. If there is other disclosures in here or other addendums that we need to add during the buyer session of this loop, that's where we would put it. If there's special stipulations that we need to talk about, one particular is if this buyer says, Emily, do not show me any properties where the seller does not offer at least 2.5% commission. I don't want to see it. If they offer 0, I don't want to see it. I don't want to see any properties that have red roofs. That could be a stipulation in there. Any special stip in there is what you would put in there. But if you have questions about what to type, if I type the letter B, here's some different things that pop up that could be contingencies that I would put in here in special steps. It doesn't usually apply to the buyer's representation agreement. It usually does not apply. But if you have a special situation that you need to talk about and get verbiage on, call me. And if I don't know the answer, I will find out the answer for you. Ha! I just used my own special little phrase that I told you guys to remember. If I don't know the answer, I will find the answer out for you. You just have to ask. Okay. Again, it's already got it on here to where I can sign. See, it pops up Emily Berryman right there if I hover over it. It's already got Josh. It put Josh in the wrong one. We're going to change this to be Rebecca. Sometimes it does that as buyer one and buyer two. You just got to make sure that the signature matches the name listed below it. See that? Joshua, Joshua, Rebecca, Rebecca. Again, I changed these into the blue color. That's just a personal preference. But you see how it makes it look so much better to where they can actually see what it is they're signing and what they're reading. It does take a little bit more time to do until I figure out how I can get it to do it automatically. Believe it or not, there's still some things that I don't know about dot loop. Now, what's our most important step? Save, save, save. Save it. Ready to go. Okay, disclaimer. There's nothing for you guys to really fill out on this, but I strongly suggest if you have not already, go and read it, read it, read it. Make sure you understand that this disclaimer, and this is what I tell all my buyers, this just tells you who I am and who I am not. It tells you that if you want to know things about zoning, you may want to ask that question and who to ask it to. Same thing with utilities and boundaries and da 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 da. That's important to know that they may have questions about title insurance expenses. Did you guys see that? They changed it from title expenses to title insurance expenses. A lot of the TAR forms, these are all the new TAR forms. That's the reason why I picked today to bring in a new loop or create a new loop, because I wanted you guys to see really the only difference between last year's forms and this year's forms is just some terminology cleanup, like adding the word insurance in there. Because title attorneys, when they discuss this inside their group, they call it title insurance expenses. As realtors, we called it title expenses. So when I called a title agent and talked about title expenses, they're going, huh? You mean title insurance expenses? And then I go, no, not insurance. You see how that can kind of get confusing? Now we just cleaned it up to where title's on the same page for verbiage that we are. Okay. So just a little bit of cleanup from everybody. Notice the signature fields need to be assigned. Now, this is really important. You see how it has in certain areas date, time, and AM and PM checked. If I were to click on date, notice the assigned person to fill in this date is no one. With dot loop, when somebody signs, and I know some of you already know this, I like to reiterate some things that our newer agents don't know. But when Rebecca signs this, her name is going to be right here. Her signature is going to be right here. And right beside it is going to be a date, a time, and a reference number showing when she signed it. So it's redundant to force Rebecca to fill in the date and the time and AM and PM, because now she's just like, oh my God, I just wanted to be able to click the signature. I didn't want to do all this extra steps. I know it's silly. The reason why they have that in there is because there are some signature softwares like there's others. There's Transaction Desk and DocuSign and there's a couple others. Adobe has one that don't always put in the date next to the signature. So it has to be filled in another field. But that's the reason why I don't make my buyers fill it in. Really, really important. This is the wire fraud disclaimer. Oh, we need to hit save because we're on the next form. Wire fraud warning. This is really important. I actually sit down with my buyers in our buyer presentation and I go over this in depth. I can't tell you how many times in my years that I've either heard horror stories or experienced them myself. I tell every single one of my buyers and sellers, do not send money to anybody until you talk to me or your lender. Period. End of discussion. I don't care if you get an email from your lender. Don't send the money until you pick up the phone and speak to them directly. The reason why I say that is because one of our title companies here in Chattanooga, their email got kind of hacked. They figured out what closings were happening, when they were happening, what the names of the people were that they were dealing with, the email addresses to those people. And they sent out emails to the buyers and said, I need you to send $50,000, whatever the money is that they're supposed to send, to XYZ Bank and ABC information. And it had the closer name on it. It had the logo of the title company at the top. The address was 123 ABC XYZ Foothills dot or org, or Cumberland Title dot net or whatever it was. It was a weird email address. But my buyer, and that's the reason why I'm telling you, is because it happened to me personally, or my buyer sent the $50,000. No questions asked. Called her bank, made the wire transfer. It's gone. The $50,000 is gone. She could not buy the house. And we figured out that she didn't call me. She didn't call her title company. She didn't call her lender. She just sent the money, and her money is gone. So this is why we have them read and initial the top of this, explaining that wire fraud is real. It happens on a regular basis to regular people, to innocent people, by corrupt people, and they make it look legit. So we have processes in place to keep them safe. And one of the processes is, if you get an email requesting money, the only two people you call is your lender, who you've been dealing with from day one, and you know, like, and trust them, and me. Get us on the phone. Let us figure out if this is a legit question or a legit request. Okay? All right. Now, this is something that you will fill out technically at the time that you figure out which property Rebecca and Joshua are going to buy, because it's really kind of like a moot point of whether or not you're going to ask for all of these things. And I'm going to show you why. First of all, we have, again, Rebecca and Joshua's name here. This is the inspection and survey, why it's important to have it. We would put our address here. And then it goes into why a buyer needs a home, appraising the home, getting a loan, the different types of inspections that we have as far as insects, the surveys that we can have done, radon, buyer home inspections, things like that. Buyer acknowledges the information about a home inspection. Does Rebecca and Josh, do they want a home inspection? I strongly recommend yes. But what if Josh goes, nah, I know everything I need to know about a home. But remember, we know Rebecca wears the pants, right? I'm just saying. So you got to let them choose whether or not they want a home inspection or not. Wood destroying insects. I know I can't see everybody, but by a show of hands, let's see them. Who would not recommend a termite inspection on any house, except for a manufactured home, of course? Who would not recommend it? Not me. I recommend it on everything. And believe it or not, there are certain companies that will not do a termite inspection on a wood cabin, a log cabin. I know, crazy, right? You would think that would be the number one house that needs a termite inspection, is a log cabin in the woods. I had a hard time finding somebody. Anyway, going back. So what about a survey? What if a survey is already on file and I just told them that they want a survey? They may choose, no, I don't want a survey, because there's already one on file. They may say, yes, Emily, I want a survey. We need to know if we need to delay closing 3 to 6 months because Rebecca wants a survey to know where she's going to put that pool. Okay. Radon test. Radon is real here. It is the secret, quiet, ugly, colorless, odorless death. It's really important to know that there are companies out there that do radon tests. It's not that expensive in my terms. I don't find it expensive. Other people might find it expensive. And then that's why they've got to find out A, who does them, B, how much they cost. But if you can explain the reason behind why they need it, they're going to probably pick to have it done every time. Okay. Because we need to know if when we're doing this inspection of this house that has a basement, even though I know Rebecca wants a ranch, there may need to be a special air filtration system installed in the crawl space or in the basement to vent out this radon gas to keep her family safe. Don't you think Rebecca would want to know if there's a radon, odorless, colorless gas killing her family in her home that she just bought for $500,000? I think she'd want to know. So we can direct her and tell her where and who she can talk to get pricing and more information about it. Do not make the recommendations on whether or not they should get a radon test yourself. You need to let them make that decision for themselves. Okay. All right. Again, we're going to the next form. So we're going to hit save. Periodically, we want to hit save. The last form is mainly for you. You can let your buyer see it. It's okay. But this is just to, when you decide on which house you're going to buy, it helps keep your timeline straight in your brain. You put the address here, what type of house it is, making sure you have all of your agreements, not just filled out, but signed. When all those checks are done, we're going to go a little bit further. Is this house built prior to 1978? Because one of the forms that we need is not automatically pulled in. We need to pull in the lead-based paint disclosure form. And I'll show you how to add forms in just a second. Is the listing or licensed agent personally related to this transaction? Are they personally related to the owner of the property or the owner of the buyer? Are they buying it themselves? Because there's another form that we need to fill out for personal interest. Is this their first time sale, their first time buy? We need to know that because with new construction, there's more forms that we need to fill out. Is there a septic system on the property? We need to know that because what if Rebecca wants to have the septic inspected? She has that right? And so we need to know if we need to extend closing an extra couple of weeks to get the septic company to come out and do an inspection. Are there any addendums about mold, sinkholes, dry rot, drywall flood, or any of the other things? Because if there's a form in there that EPA came in and said there was lead-based paint and it was remediated, we need to have our buyer and seller have that form filled out and signed, right? Is the property currently leased? This is important because investors buy rental properties all the time, and we have to abide by rental rights. Tenant rights is a real thing. You guys have to abide by them, and you have to know if they're in place before you buy and make an offer. Is there any other special terms you need to make a mental note of yourself? This form is for you. It's not for anybody else but you. And again, we're going to hit save. Once you're ready to share these documents to Rebecca and Josh to sign, you can hit that share button. The share box will pop up. It will tell you right here exactly how many fields Rebecca and Josh are to sign. And if you know that that number is different, you go, oh, wait, it's supposed to be 11 fields. I need to go back and look. Then you can X out and go back. What if Uncle Joseph needs to sign these too because he's a buyer? We can add him in here. Or what if not a buyer, but he wants to know, he wants to see this information and approve it before Rebecca and Josh sign it. You can add him in here as an admin or an extra person to review these documents. Now, notice I don't have an option to view or sign these because I didn't put an email address in for Rebecca and Josh. If I had put an email address in for Rebecca and Josh, you see how it says view only, can sign, can fill and sign, and can edit in private. This is important because especially when we get to the listing boot camp next month, fill and sign is going to be important for when they fill out the disclaimers. Okay, because they have to check mark everything themselves. You cannot check mark them and then have them sign it. I'm going to repeat that. The buyers and the sellers have to do their own check marks. You cannot do it for them. So that um, inspection and survey form that we filled out, we just pretended that Rebecca and Josh checked marked all those boxes. But in order for them to fill it out, you can actually go in here, and when you click on it, you see how the assign button comes up. If I assign this to Rebecca, see how it changes? I can't do anything now. Okay. And so I'm going to X out because I don't want to save it because I just messed up that little box. But my point though is it can let Rebecca fill it out only. Here's the most important piece though. If there is squares that you need Rebecca and Josh to check mark, you need to have Rebecca, let's say she's the one that's going to do all the check marking. You need to set these to Rebecca, right? We're going to change this and go Rebecca and save. And notice I can see how the X shows up and I can't check mark it for her. I need to send all these documents to only Rebecca first. Let her check mark everything and sign everything. It comes back to you. Then you send it to Josh. If you send it to both of them at the same time, and Rebecca's got to go in there and check mark some stuff, it's not going to let Josh sign anything. And then you're going to get that frantic phone call is, it's wrong. I can't do anything. Help me. And then you've got to figure it out and it's all a big mess. So if you remember this, if any form, and a lot of times I'll send this form separately to Rebecca and let her fill this one out and then send it over to Josh. I don't send them all. I just send the one. It just makes it so much easier if you send the boxes, the form that has the boxes in it for Rebecca to check mark or your buyer to check mark to one person, let them fill it out, sign it, then send it over to the second person. It makes your life so much easier. Okay. Now, you get your offer accepted. We're going to cover that in a couple of weeks. But now you at least know that all of your forms are now signed. So you see here it says not shared. That means I didn't ever send it to Rebecca and Joshua to sign. And I don't want to do this now because then it would send her all these forms and yeah, just we're pretending. So once I send all this stuff to my buyers, this will change to waiting on others. Waiting on others. That means that you've sent it, you're waiting on your buyer and your seller or your two buyers to sign. Once they signed, you will get notification if you set it up in dot loop the right way, but it will change to signed. It'll say right here, signed. Once all of these are signed, you can then go up here because it's like, whoa, everything's done. I'm done. I don't need to do anything else. You can go hit this submit for review. Okay. And I'm just going to show you the one that I got under contract last night. So this is the buyer's agreement folder that we talked about in the other folder, in the other loop. You can see this, right, Rebecca? It says 1570. Okay. Okay. So if you notice, again, like I told you, the other one said not shared. These all say signed. So Emily knows that now I get to send this file over for what? Compliance review. You'll hit the submit for review. It brings up this pop-up and you can pick the folder and only that folder will go to Cameron, our compliance officer, and that's the one he will review. He won't review any of these others because he knows if he goes in this file and he says, oh, but Emily, your offer documents aren't done. Did I send them for review? Oh, he can still see them, but he'll know he doesn't need to review them. Okay. And then I hit submit. He gets notification. He reviews them and look, approved, 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 approved. I am one step closer to closing. Woohoo. Last night I got everything signed. I promise you, I kid you not. I got this under contract last night. I got everything signed last night. And look at it this morning. Well, this afternoon. Approved. I sent it last night at 11 o'clock after I got everything signed for compliance. And it's already been approved because it was all done. Now, this is how my crazy brain works. If you notice, when we looked at Rebecca's file, all the forms were just that. They were just names of the forms. But notice mine have a little asterisk next to them. In my brain, if I see that asterisk, I never have to open that file again because it is done. That's what tells me in my brain, I never have to open that again. But if it's not got an asterisk on it, Emily's going to open it 5 more times going, oh, wait, I got that signed. And then 5 more times, I got that signed. It just tells me I don't have to ever look at that again. It saves me so much more time. Now, you guys can figure out your own way of doing things. Like sometimes people will change the address to listing, da 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 da, or buying, da 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 da. If you notice, I have 2 folders, 2 loops, because when another agent is using dot loop and they share a file with you, it creates a new loop in your folders. See this? This is not my loop. It doesn't look the same, does it? Here's my loop. See the difference? All lowercase, no asterisk. All uppercase, asterisk. So you know when we went to look a minute ago, I went straight to it because I knew what I was looking for. Otherwise, if these addresses look the same, I would pick the wrong one every single time. Every single time. So that is why it's really important for you to figure out a system for yourself. If you want to use my system, great, do it. Why reinvent the wheel? If you want to talk to me about my system and get more information about my system to where you can implement it yourself, great, let's do it. Okay. I'm going to stop sharing now. And so it's really important for you guys to figure out what works for you. And if you need help implementing it, I'm just going to tell you time and time and time and time again, call me, text me, email me. I'm here to help you guys. Okay. Any questions? I threw a lot at you guys today. We looked at a lot of stuff today. Is there any questions from the you guys that are on the call today? You can unmute yourself and ask or just throw it in the chat. If not, then I will trim up this recording and get it out to you guys in the next day or two. Later today, you'll get the recording from yesterday with yesterday's boot camp folder or manual. And then tomorrow you'll get today's, okay? And then you can download it, print it, save it in your computer, whatever it is you want to do with it. But you guys always have access to me anytime that you need anything. And I see Rebecca sitting there shaking her head. Yes, she's like, yeah, guys, use your sources. And Emily's a great source. Rebecca and I've done some great work together. And she's going to be a fantastic agent. I can't wait to do a deal with you. All right. So if that's everything, it's a little bit longer than yesterday. 12:38 is the time. We are going to be signing off. And thank you guys so much for coming and joining us today. You guys have a great day.